I didn't just show up to be a laborer or a rock truck driver or whatever. I mean, there's no use staying our way.
In a stunning turn of events that has shaken the mining world and reality TV fans alike, legendary gold miners Tony Beets and his son Mike Beets, stars of Discovery Channel's hit show Gold Rush, have been sentenced to life in prison. The verdict, announced yesterday in a crowded courtroom in Yukon Territory, marks what many are calling the most dramatic criminal case ever to emerge from the reality TV mining scene. Tony and Mike Beets, famous for their Dutch accents, colorful language, and no-nonsense mining style, were convicted on multiple serious charges. These included major environmental violations, claim jumping, fraudulent gold reporting, and what prosecutors called a criminal conspiracy of historic proportions in the mining industry. Their well-known Paradise Hill operation, once portrayed on TV as a gold-rich success, has now been exposed as the base of a criminal enterprise built on lies and environmental destruction. The investigation began 3 years ago when Parker Schnabel, a former protege of Tony Beets and a fellow miner, reported concerns to the authorities after noticing questionable practices near his own mining claims. What started as a standard inquiry quickly escalated, revealing an extensive pattern of environmental violations unlike anything ever documented in the Klondike. What we uncovered went far beyond simply cutting corners to boost profits, said lead prosecutor Catherine White. Investigators found that Tony and Mike had actively and repeatedly bypassed environmental protection laws, causing long-term damage that experts estimate will take decades to repair. As Judge Robert Tmain read the sentence, the courtroom grew silent. His tone was firm and solemn. "Mr. Beets and son, the court has reviewed the overwhelming evidence and the jury's unanimous decision on every count. The sheer scope of your crimes, along with your utter lack of remorse, leaves no choice but to impose the harshest penalty permitted by law. You are both sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Tony Beets, now 75 and known for his rough appearance and frequent profanity, remained calm as the sentence was handed down. His trademark confidence only faltered when his 35-year-old son Mike received the same punishment. Mike, who had recently taken on more responsibility running the family's mining operations, looked visibly shaken as the weight of the sentence settled in. The 11-week trial featured dramatic testimony from several familiar faces of the Gold Rush series, adding a surreal element to the proceedings. Key witnesses included former Beets crew members, who described how they were ordered to carry out environmentally harmful work, especially when the cameras were off. Another major figure in the case was Rick Ness, a fellow Gold Rush miner who had worked with both the Beets family and Parker Schnabel. He testified about secret conversations between Tony and Mike, describing what prosecutors called a dual mining strategy, one operation designed for TV appearances, and another off-camera method that was far more destructive and unregulated. "Tony used to say there was TV mining and then there was real mining," Ness said, clearly uncomfortable as he testified against his old colleagues. "He made it clear that some things should never be filmed, and we were warned about the consequences of talking about them outside the team." The most shocking testimony came from Minnie Beets, Tony's wife of more than 40 years and the longtime bookkeeper for the family business. In a surprise move, she agreed to testify against her husband and son in exchange for immunity, revealing detailed financial documents revealed a consistent pattern of underreporting gold production, alongside intricate schemes to offload unreported gold through black market channels. Minnie's cooperation with prosecutors has reportedly caused a rift within the Beets family. Her daughters, Monica and Bianca Beets, have voiced their support for their mother while expressing shock and disappointment over the evidence presented against their father and brother. Both attended the verdict but avoided speaking to the media, leaving through a private exit. Parker Schnabel, whose initial concerns led to the investigation, testified over 3 days about what he observed while working near the Beets mining site. Now 30, Schnabel started on the show as a teenager, learning the trade from his grandfather. He recalled numerous suspicious activities occurring at night on Beets-controlled land. "I respected Tony. He taught me a lot when I was starting out," he said, keeping steady eye contact with his former mentor. "But over time, I witnessed things that didn't align with legal mining operations. Water that should have been clear was flowing onto my claim at 3 a.m. filled with contaminants. testing revealed mercury and other substances not associated with legal practices. I felt obligated to report it. The courtroom proceedings were made more complex by the testimony of several Discovery Channel producers and crew members who had filmed the show. Some producers denied any knowledge of wrongdoing, while others admitted harboring suspicions they chose not to report, fearing it might jeopardize the show's success. Executive producer Christo Doyle, a familiar face from the show's after-show specials, stated that the production team followed strict environmental protocols while filming. However, he acknowledged they had limited oversight during the lengthy off-camera periods. Doyle explained under cross-examination that Gold Rush only documents around 15% of the mining season. "We can't monitor what happens during the other 85%, he said. "We depended on our miners to operate with integrity and to follow local laws." The trial has sparked broader concerns about how reality TV shows are managed, with critics arguing that the pressure to keep a hit series profitable can create an environment where misconduct is overlooked. Discovery Channel has released a statement expressing shock at the outcome and denying any prior awareness of illegal activities. Fred Lewis, a military veteran turned cast member, recounted an unsettling conversation with Tony Beets during a cast social event. Tony had been drinking and started boasting about how environmental laws didn't matter to him because he knew how to dodge them, Lewis said. "At the time, I thought he was just being dramatic, like his TV persona. I never guessed the extent of what was really going on." Prosecutors presented a wealth of environmental evidence, including satellite images taken before and after mining in Beets-controlled zones. These showed widespread, unauthorized rerouting of waterways and destruction of protected wetland areas. Environmental experts testified that some areas showed mercury and other toxic substances at concentrations more than 200 times the legal limit. The defense called Todd Hoffman, a former cast member who left to pursue other projects, as a character witness. However, the move backfired when prosecutors used the opportunity to confront him about past disputes with Tony Beets. "Yeah, Tony and I didn't always see eye to eye," Hoffman admitted. He said, "My operation was amateur and inefficient. Now I wonder if it was because I was trying to follow the rules, while he clearly wasn't." The case escalated further when evidence surfaced that the Beets operation had encroached onto claims owned by other miners featured on the show, secretly extracting gold from land they didn't own. Dave Turan, now star of his own spin-off Gold Rush, Dave Turan's Lost Mine, testified about strange digging patterns he found along the borders of a claim he worked years ago. "Back then, I couldn't prove anything, but the numbers didn't make sense," Turan said. "The gold we expected wasn't there, like someone had already mined it. Now I understand what really happened." Led by prominent attorney Jonathan Blackwood, the defense team tried to frame the case as a selective prosecution motivated by envy toward the Beets family's success and Tony's larger-than-life television persona. However, this argument failed to gain traction as the prosecution systematically presented environmental testing data, financial documents, and witness testimony from former employees involved in the illegal operations. "Tony Beets is a vibrant personality playing a role for television," Blackwood stated during his closing remarks. "The prosecution has confused the entertainer with the businessman." This case is a clear example of authorities overreaching, influenced more by how mining is dramatized on TV than by its true nature. The defense strategy crumbled entirely when prosecutors introduced secretly recorded conversations between Tony and his son Mike Beets. These recordings detailed deliberate methods to conceal environmental violations from inspectors. In one especially incriminating clip, Tony is heard advising his son on when to use illegal mercury, timing it to avoid known inspection periods in the area. After the verdict was delivered, several jurors agreed to speak anonymously about their deliberations. One female juror in her 40s said, "The evidence was simply overwhelming. We genuinely tried to separate the television character from real business practices, but everything we saw and heard pointed to a clear, deliberate pattern of illegal behavior." Another juror, who has experience in mining, commented, "As someone familiar with how mining works, I was appalled by how calculated these violations were. This wasn't a matter of confusion or accidental breaches. Their entire business seemed built on bypassing environmental rules to increase profits." The environmental harm they've caused in Yukon waterways is beyond measure. The trial sent shockwaves through Yukon's mining sector, especially given the economic boost gold rush tourism brought during the show's long run. While many local business owners acknowledged the severity of the crimes, they also voiced concerns over how this might affect the area's image. Tony Beets put the Klondike back on the map for many people, said Marion Clark, a longtime resident of Dawson City. The show brought visitors and attention to our region. But we can't ignore the damage done to our land. Mining is part of our history, but it must be done responsibly and with care for the environment. With Tony and Mike Beets beginning prison sentences, uncertainty surrounds the future of their vast mining assets. Prosecutors have stated that a separate civil case will decide the fate of the family's claims and equipment. A large portion is expected to be sold off to fund environmental restoration in the areas they impacted. The conviction presents an unprecedented challenge for Discovery Channel, which had relied heavily on the Beets family for the popularity of Gold Rush. The network plans to continue airing the show with other mining crews, but industry insiders question if it can retain its appeal without the Beets' dramatic presence. Chris Dummett, a fan-favorite former carpenter-turned-gold room operator who has appeared on the show with multiple teams, voiced what many cast and crew members were feeling outside the courthouse. "This is a tough day for all of us. Nobody comes out ahead. The land is harmed, lives are in ruins, and now there's a cloud over an industry filled with honest, hard-working people who follow the rules." As Tony and Mike Beets were escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Tony finally addressed the crowd of reporters, colleagues, and onlookers. In a quiet moment devoid of his usual swagger, he simply said, "The Viking has fallen," before disappearing through the door that marked the end of his decades-long mining legacy. For Gold Rush fans, the conviction casts past episodes in a much darker light. What once seemed like gritty, triumphant mining moments now take on a more disturbing context. Environmental groups are already using scenes from the show, paired with court evidence, to raise awareness about why mining regulations matter. This case also opens a broader conversation about the responsibility of reality TV producers to ensure that what they document, and profit from, is conducted within legal and ethical boundaries. Executives from several major networks are urging the industry to come together for broader conversations about setting clear guidelines to ensure regulatory compliance in television programs that feature extractive industries. Kevin and Monica Beets, Tony's other children who often appear on the show as part of the family's mining operation, were not charged. Evidence showed they had no role in making decisions related to the illegal activities. In a joint statement, they expressed their deep shock over the extent of the violations and asked for privacy as they consider what steps to take next in their personal and professional lives. As the Yukon mining community gears up for the next season without two of its most recognized figures, the impact of the Beets case continues to ripple through the industry. Local authorities have responded by announcing stricter inspection procedures for all mining sites. Discovery Channel has also taken action by introducing more compliance officers who will remain on location even when filming isn't underway. The extraordinary life sentences given to Tony and Mike Beets serve as a powerful reminder of the severe penalties for environmental crimes and the illusion that fame can protect individuals from being held accountable. Tony Beets, once known for calling himself the King of the Klondike on national television, now faces the reality of living out his days not as a mining legend, but as federal inmate number 88675309. The empire he built on dirt has now been swept away by the justice he once believed he could outrun.